Alright, well, looks like we're back. Fantasy season is upon us, boys. Welcome to Coffee with the Commish. So, this is a special draft day edition. Well, I guess day after draft day it would be. Kind of a draft wrap up. I'm just going to go through real quick, do an overview of each team. I'll start with the team who got the worst draft grade, go up to the team who got the best draft grade. If you haven't looked at draft grades yet, then this might be a surprise to you. If you or maybe it's not a surprise to you at all because But I'm gonna basically look a little bit at what Yahoo said. I'm gonna go through the top 3 picks real quick. I'm gonna go who what Yahoo said was the steal of the individual's draft. I'm gonna go and see what Yahoo said the stretch pick for that person was in the draft. And then I'm gonna do a little segment that I like to call 3 question marks all in a row. And that's just me looking at the roster real quick and kind of seeing what pops out at me, So without further ado, we're going to start with the bottom of the pack. Now, being at the bottom doesn't mean that you're the worst, but it means you have the least far to fall. Lunchbox Lacey is at the bottom. First pick, David Johnson. Second pick, Devontae Adams. Third pick, A.J. Green. Now, David Johnson, he could be best running back of all time, or he could not be. He hasn't played in a bit. We saw what kind of a mess the Cardinals' backfield was last year, and who knows? But it's a worthy pick. Devontae Adams. I mean, you can't really go wrong with a wide receiver on the Packers who has Aaron Rodgers throwing to them. The departure of Jordy Nelson signals a big boost for Adams, so there's that. A.J. Green is somebody I think that never really gets enough credit. I think I was looking at the stats, and I think over their careers, A.J. Green and Julio Jones are pretty like neck and neck, but Julio gets a lot more press than A.J. Green for some reason. Anyway, the steal for Lunchbox Lacey was Michael Gallup, wide receiver of the Cowboys. Des Bryant gone. There's obviously some shoes to fill down there. On the other hand, Dak Prescott he's a quarterback, but he has Ezekiel Elliott, so he doesn't need to throw it. For the stretch, they put Rex Burkhead. They're saying you could have picked up Rex Burkhead later on, or maybe he wasn't such a good value with the pick that you took him at. And running backs for the Patriots are always kind of fishy. You never really know what's going to happen, especially with Sony Michael. I mean, they obviously took Sony Michael in the draft for a reason, and at the very least, it's going to be some kind of committee, or they're going to ride the hot hand and just volatility and Bill Belichick being obtuse, and you never know. Question marks for me for Lunchbox Lacey is the fact that he's got 2 tight ends on the roster. We have Jordan Reed on the Redskins and George Kittle on San Francisco. And I don't actually remember why I put this as the triple question mark, because it's kind of the thing is that Jordan Reed's probably going to get hurt. That's what he just kind of does. He gets hurt. He's really good while he's there, but then he's not there, and he's not there anymore. So having a second tight end to back him up is fine, but if that's what you're going for, I might have just taken Kittle and then taking somebody else with Reed's pick. But that's just me. Anyways, next up in the food chain, he's got Browntown, second to last. That's not quite so bad, I guess. Continuing tradition with picking Antonio Brown as number 1 pick. Devonta Freeman, number 2 pick. Christian McCaffrey, number 3 pick. For the steal, they gave you Cameron Meredith, wide receiver for the Saints. He's got Drew Brees thrown to him, so there's that. For the stretch pick, they are saying Roethlisberger. You took a little bit too early. I think there are quarterbacks to stretch for. I don't know that I think Roethlisberger is one of them. He does have Antonio Brown, but they also have a pretty nifty running game that they utilize pretty effectively. So, for question marks, the fact that you have Devonta Freeman, because, well, not so much that you have him, is that the fact that he was your number 2 pick, because Devonta Freeman is kind of handcuffed with Tevin Coleman. It's kind of a two-back system down there, and Freeman's coming off MCL and PCL sprains from last year. I think he's a good running back, and he's not necessarily in a bad system. But I think when you've got Julio Jones, and then you've got Tevin Coleman, like there's only so much pie. You can only put the pie into so many pieces, as it were. And then, that's not to say that he doesn't get hurt again. So Devonta Freeman at 2 is, I don't know, it could pay off. We'll see if it does, but it could. For David's team, David took Le'Veon Bell with pick number 1, Tom Brady with pick number 2, and Larry Fitzgerald with pick number 3. Now, there are some quarterbacks that you might want to take in like the 3rd or 4th rounds. Tom Brady isn't one of those, and he's definitely not a quarterback you take in the 2nd round. Greatest of all time doesn't necessarily transmit into greatest fantasy points of all time. So the Le'Veon pick is, a no-brainer. But then you got the Tom Brady pick, and then you pick Larry Fitzgerald for some reason. I mean, he's not getting any younger, and I mean, he plays in the slot, which is fine if the volume's there. But again, if David Johnson's back, who knows where all the volume's going to go and the pieces of the pie and all that. So we'll see. I think there could have been some better value there. For the steal of the pick, they're saying Rashard Matthews, wide receiver for the Titans. And yeah, I mean, we really don't know what the Titans offense is capable of yet. For the stretch, Marquise Goodwin, wide receiver for the 49ers. Yeah. I mean, it depends on how you value those players and where you take them. I mean, I think they're both pretty similar wide receivers, and it's kind of a toss-up, really. I don't know. I might consider starting one of those two over Fitzgerald. I don't crucify me or anything. But then for question marks, just the fact that 2 defenses on the roster, I don't really know of a situation where 2 defenses really make sense. Maybe it was auto draft kicking in, but regardless, that doesn't make it any less your fault. And also the fact that you've got Marcus Mariota on the roster. I mean, I think there's quarterbacks on the waiver wire right now who I would trust more than Mariota. But that's just me. Next up in the draft grades, managerless team. Managerless team is managerless, and they are just auto drafting. So obviously, it's not going to be the ideal situation. Pick number 1, the team picked Saquon Barkley. Pick number 2, Julio Jones. Pick number 3, Mike Evans. Which, I mean, those right there, I mean, that's kind of, I don't think that's bad. I think that's a smart thing to do, because in a league, you kind of have to decide where you're going to get your points from. Because in a league with 3 wide receiver slots and a flex spot, you can go, top heavy in wide receivers, and then just hope you hit on some running backs in the later rounds. And that's kind of what Angelo's team did. Saquon Barkley is a question mark, but everybody says that, he's the second coming of Le'Veon Bell or whatever. Julio Jones, just some issues with him is just that he's kind of boom or bust. He can either get 0 points or like 40 points, or he can lose you some games that he might have won if he was just a little bit more consistent. And then Mike Evans is, he's good. He's worth a 3rd round pick, in my opinion. For the steal, they're giving him Keelan Cole, wide receiver for the Jaguars. Okay, Bortles throwing you the ball. I'm sure that's a steal, I guess. For the stretch, David Njoku, tight end on the Browns. So, yeah, I think any Browns tight end. I mean, Gary Barnes did okay for a while. I'm sure, Mike, you remember that, the Barnage days. But yeah, and then for question marks, just the fact this is what you get when you auto draft a team. You got 2 defenses, 2 quarterbacks. You're taking up bench spots with all those extra guys, and you wind up with 1 extra wide receiver on the bench. So 1 guy gets hurt, and that's it. You can't fix your bye weeks anymore because you have 1 wide receiver on the bench. Then you're having to fuck around with the waiver wire, which, the managerless team, I guess I'll have to be doing that, but I don't know. Next up, team already won. So if you're for those keeping score at home, we're gonna start out again. We're gonna say so last lowest draft grade, Lunchbox Lazy, then Browntown, then David's team, then managerless team. Then we got team already won. We'll see if he's already won. Pick number 1, DeAndre Hopkins. Pick number 2, Keenan Allen. Pick number 3, Joe Mixon. And again, what did I just say about going top heavy on your wide receivers? This is, it's a legit strategy. You've got DeAndre Hopkins, who with Deshaun Watson, doesn't matter who is throwing doesn't matter who is throwing DeAndre Hopkins the ball, he's going to come down with it. And the fact that if it's the Deshaun Watson that we saw last year, then it's going to be a smoke show. Yeah, I'm excited about this, man. I'll tell you, this Hopkins boy, I really wanted DeAndre Hopkins. I really wanted him, but it just didn't work out for me. And then number 2 got Keenan Allen, and both of those are grade A top tier receivers. Joe Mixon for the Bengals I don't really remember hearing a lot about him last year. I think he was good, but I don't know if he was excellent. For the Steel, they're giving you Mike Williams, wide receiver for the Chargers, and this was a good. I don't know if he did this intentionally or not, but you've got Mike Williams sitting on your bench. If Keenan Allen gets hurt, you just shove Mike Williams right in there because he gets a boost in value automatically, and you don't really miss a step. And Mike Williams is not Keenan Allen, Everyone doesn't need that explained to you, but it's a nice little handcuff. For a stretch, Jay Ajayi, running back for the Eagles. I don't know. I don't have written down where you took him, but it's not a bad player. It's just possibly maybe not. I don't know. I don't know about that. And then you took the Green Bay defense. I don't remember if they were. I remember that they weren't good last year, so I don't know how they got good all of a sudden, but whatever. Next up, we got China number 1. China number 1 took Melvin Gordon at number 1, Odell Beckham Jr. number 2, Travis Kelce number 3. Now, like I said before, with there's quarterbacks you take in the 3rd or maybe 4th rounds, but they're not Tom Brady. I'm going to say that you can take Travis Kelce, you can take a tight end with your 3rd round pick, but it's got to be Gronk. It can't really be. Kelce's a 4th or an early 5th or something. For the Steel, DJ Moore, wide receiver for the Panthers. The Panthers they kind of go through feast or famine. It's like they can't ever be consistent and just be good or be bad. They have to be really good or really bad. And I'm pretty sure they weren't very good last year, so maybe this bodes well for them. Stretch, Jamison Crowder, wide receiver for the Redskins. Crowder had some flashes in the pan last year with the Redskins, but now Pierre Garçon's gone. Now Kirk Cousins is gone. It's a kind of a new. They're shifting around out there, and he wasn't really worth keeping around last year. So unless he, turns the corner in a good way, he's not really going to be worth it this year. And then, in addition to drafting a tight end not named Gronk at number 3, you also have a total of 3 tight ends on your roster. So, okay, you're saving up for the storm, I guess. All right, next up, we are entering the top 4 here. In the 4th best draft grade award goes to Andrew. Number 1, he took Alvin Kamara, running back for the Saints. Number 2, Rob Gronkowski, tight end, Patriots. Number 3, Stephon Diggs, wide receiver for the Vikings. And Alvin Kamara he proved last year that he's a beast. It doesn't matter that there are 2 running backs in the backfield for the Saints. They are going to use both of them, and Kamara will break off long runs. Like you can pretty much guarantee it. Gronk at number 2. If it's near the end of the round, sure. I don't know. And Diggs is sweet. Steele, they're giving you Sonia Michael, running back for the Patriots. Like I said before, they took him in the draft for a reason, but also it's the Patriots running back stable, so it's a little bit I don't know. You can't really. It's a situation where you never really know what you're gonna get. It's like a box of chocolates, you know. And then question marks for Andrew. Is that you took Edelman? You drafted Edelman. He's suspended 4 games. I mean, I get that he'll be not suspended anymore, and then he'll be there. But I don't know that he's a good enough player to warrant a bench spot through 4 games because it's Julian Edelman. I don't know that I agree with that, but yeah. All right, number 3 on the draft pecking order, the draft grade score sheet, the big old billboard in the sky. I'm all the way up. Now I'm all the way up. They took Todd Gurley at number 1, Jordan Howard at number 2, Kenyon Drake at number 3. Now, I talked a little bit ago about being top heavy with your wide receivers because you could possibly have 4 of them on your starting roster. Whereas, I mean, you could go the other way, try to slurp up all those delicious running backs, at the beginning, and leaving nothing for your opponents. So that's kind of what your strategy appears to be. But then the rest, but you have so many wide receiver spots to fill. I mean, you're obviously going to be starting a running back in your flex, but you've got so many wide receiver spots to fill. You're kind of rushing and panicking a little bit, and then out in with that, you got to take a quarterback, and you got to take a tight end, and you're like, oh my gosh, got to take all these positions now. Running back set, but everything else is going to shreds. Oh no! But I think you'll do. I mean, if all those guys stay healthy, that's a good chunk of. That's going to be a big chunk of your points week to week right there. For the steal, Randall Cobb, wide receiver for the Pack, and Nelson's gone, so that's can only be good for Cobb. I don't really recall Cobb balling out last year when Nelson was gone. But new year, new you, I guess. The stretch, Chris Hogan, wide receiver for the Patriots. He's also a white receiver for the Patriots. He's a scrappy Jim Rett, lunch pail kind of guy, whatever. Question marks, you got 2 defenses. Why do you need 2 defenses? I don't really think of a reason because, I mean, yes, there are good defensive teams. However, a lot of what gives you defensive points is matchups. And unless you've gone and said, okay, my starting defense, they have a bad matchup. Or no, it's not they have a bad matchup. My starting defense, we're going to have a bye on week, say, 8. And so you're going to take this other defense that has a good matchup on week 8. And then is that all you're doing? Is you're just letting them sit there, just for that 1 week and taking up a roster spot? I mean, it's not like a defense can get injured. You're still going to have the same defense if, it's not like a player who can just get injured. So I don't see the logic in taking 2 defenses. Some schools of thought say you don't even draft a defense. You just slurp up all the talent and use your bench spots for that, and then make a cut or 2 and pick up a stream of defenses the whole season. Some people do that. Second place. So I'm sure you know by now that if second place is Armed Rodgery, you know who first is. But Armed Rodgery, second place, second highest draft grade. He went running back, wide receiver, running back. He went Ezekiel Elliott, number 1. Michael Thomas, number 2. Dalvin Cook, number 3. Smart picks because Ezekiel Elliott, who does the Cowboys offense flow through? Dalvin Cook, who will the Vikings offense flow through? And then Michael Thomas for the Saints. I mean, he's kind of a big deal in there. Drew Brees is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, obviously. Michael Thomas is, the leading wide receiver for the Saints. Yes, they are getting more into the ground and pound and the whole run game idea, but it's still the Saints, and it's still Drew Brees, and he's still going to throw the ball, and Michael Thomas is still going to get points. For the steal, they're giving you, because you got Aaron Rodgers in the 4th round. I'm pretty impressed because I think Aaron Rodgers is pretty. He's going around 3 from what I've seen. So people just must have been sleeping. They had other things they wanted to do. They weren't valuing the quarterback position as highly, and you just went out and snatched it up. You got the best quarterback in the game. For the stretch, Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver for the Broncos, and I mean, he's not that good. I don't think he's that good. And then that kind of segues into my question marks for armed Rodgery is the wide receivers that he's got. So he's got, he's starting Michael Thomas. Okay, sure. Got Corey Davis. Fine. Jordy Nelson. In Oakland, I mean, he's getting older. And part of the reason he was so good in Green Bay was because of chemistry with Rodgers. He doesn't have that with Derek Carr. And then you go down from there back into the bench. And you've got Emmanuel Sanders, who's not that good. You've got Will Fuller, who, I mean, he catches touchdowns or nothing, it seems, so sometimes he's not going to really be getting you much of anything. Got Sammy Watkins, who really hasn't found his way in Kansas City yet. And then Tyler Lockett, who kind of like Will Fuller. He's the speedy, blow the top off the defense kind of guy, but he's not consistent getting you 10 points a week kind of guy. So I don't know. I don't think that your bench is going to be a lot of help when it comes to your wide receivers. But I mean, and you have Carson Wentz on there too. I don't know why you think you need Rodgers and Wentz. Like, what are you just gonna? I don't know. Get out of here. And then top spot, the number 1 draft grade in the draft. Oh, it was me. It's King of the Hill. Number 1, pick number 1. I took Leonard Fournette. And then pick number 2, Kareem Hunt. And pick number 3, Tyreek Hill. I did. Obviously, you've heard me talk about this, so it was obviously kind of on my mind. I did kind of want to go top heavy on the wide receivers, but because of where my picks were, I couldn't imagine there being any kind of usable talent at running back at the tail end of the 3rd round. Yeah, it would have been the tail end of the 3rd round and top of the 4th. So by the time you get down there, you don't want to be taking a starting running back. You don't want to be taking your running back number 1 at practically the 4th round. So I just had to play best available, and then because of that, I wound up with 2 Chiefs. I didn't mean to do that, and I never thought of the Chiefs being like a points powerhouse or anything. But I mean, we saw last year, Kareem Hunt, just like Zeke and Leonard Fournette and those guys, Kareem Hunt's going to be the guy that the offense kind of goes through. And then when they want to make room for Kareem Hunt, what are they going to do? Pat Mahomes is going to chuck the ball 70 yards in the air to Tyreek Hill down the field. So that's how that ended up. The steal for me, funny enough, me and Arm Rodgery were kind of bros here because his steal and my steal were both our quarterbacks. I took Deshaun Watson in the 5th round. And as I already said, I was kind of really hoping for DeAndre Hopkins. But if I couldn't have Hopkins, I could at least snag Watson. I'm pretty stoked on him. People say, oh, well, he got injured. He's not the same. Like, okay, whatever. Okay. I'm stoked on it. For the stretch, it's giving me Brandon Cooks, wide receiver for the Rams. I think that the Rams, they wanted a certain kind of player from Sammy Watkins, and they didn't get it. And I think that Sean McVay is going to use Brandon Cooks in a way that utilizes his skill set. And I might value that a little bit differently than other people, and that's okay. People have different opinions. For me, my question marks is, let's see. I think it was my bench running backs because they're not very good. I mean, they're either not very good or they're unproven. We have Marlon Mack, who, for the Colts, he had flashes last year. I actually picked him up off the waiver wire last year, but after I picked him up, he stopped doing so hot, and so I let him go. Rashad Penny, we haven't seen much of Penny. He's had a hand injury. I hope the Seahawks are going to use him a lot, but I mean, I should have known better than to take a Seahawks running back not named Lynch. I mean, I really should have. And then Ronald Jones, who he's behind Peyton Barber at this point. He's not doing much of anything. But anyways, that's the draft grade. So I'll try to make more than one of these this year. And that's it.